Gawn Grainger grew up in London during the Blitz, only a few minutes' walk from the theatres of the West End. He worked in rep in the late 1950s, and in the 1970s he joined the National Theatre, where he was mentored by Laurence Olivier, whose official biographer he later became. However, Gawn Grainger's acting career started while he was still at school.
My very first job in the theatre was King's Rhapsody with Ivor Novello, and I played Ivor Novello's son at the Palace Theatre in 40 something or other.
How did that come about? Were your parents in the business?
No, what happened was I'd done a lot of acting at school and loved it, and I was at school at Westminster City, which is in Victoria, and I used to go there on a 38 bus every day. And we lived in Red Lion Square, and I read in the paper that they were looking for a boy to take over from the boy who'd grown too tall in the show. So on the way back from school, I got off the bus, went into the Palace Theatre, and he was sitting in his dressing room. He said, "Oh, you look like I did when I was your age. When can you start?" That's how it began. So I went in to the dressing room, and he's exactly what he said. He said, "Oh, you looked the way I did when I was your age."
And you were sorry, how old were you then?
12. Yeah. So that was my beginning. I started at the top and made my way down. So after that, I was in the Boy Scouts, and I did a little show at the Bloomsbury Baptist Church, and unknown to me, they invited Ralph Reeder along, and he saw me and wrote lots of sketches for me for the first gang show after the war, which was a huge thing at where was it? The old King's Theatre in Hammersmith, which is no longer there.
Yeah.
So those were my sort of beginnings, and because of that, then I had a radio program called Hello There, which I used to interview people on Saturday mornings. It was a sort of In Town Tonight for young people.
But how did this go? I mean,
it was absurd.
But this was all off your own bat.
Completely. It just all seemed to happen, but also at that time, I was an avid theatre goer, so I would go at least once a week into the gallery. So I'd get 6 months for my stool. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then I'd sit there, and then I'd always try to get a stool near the front so I could run up the stairs and be at the front in the gallery. And I saw everything. But at that time, I was very, very keen on an actor called Michael Redgrave. I thought he was very special. So I went to see him in a play called Winter Journey at the old St. James Theatre before it closed. And I sat in the gallery, and play began, and through the audience came this actor, and I'd never seen anybody do anything like that before. I was riveted, and I was seeing apparently the method for the first time. Turns out that this actor was called Sam Wanamaker. So
what year was this then?
This would have been in the 50s. I can't remember what year it is now. I could look it up for you. And I was so enamoured with him that I went to see every show he did. So I saw The Big Knife, I saw Rainmaker, Rose Tattoo, whatever he was doing in town. And lo and behold, 1,000 years later, I married his daughter.
Strange, isn't it?
It's really weird, really weird. But those are my they were my early theatre going stuff. But when it sort of happened for me for the first time, when I suppose I became a serious actor, because in those days I did a lot of television, a lot of radios and things like that, but I was a boy actor.
Did it never occur to you or to your parents to send you to stage school?
No. Well, I went for a time. I used to go on Saturday mornings to Italia Conti in Archer Street, but that was all. I think they thought maybe it was something that would just drift away, but it didn't. And so I got myself all sorts of jobs. I worked as a stagehand on Peter Pan. I worked as an extra on the Vienna Operetta when it came to the old Stoll Theatre. It was in Kingsway. It was this huge opera house, yeah. And the Vienna Operetta came, and they did Princess Shardus and Vienna Blood and Merry Widow. And in Merry Widow, they all spoke, they were speaking German, Austrian. There were no interpreters, and they sort of explained to me that I was going to be part of a gypsy band, and I would be playing the violin. And so we were dressed up, and all the things went on. This was great fun. And it was in those days, the first nights were, all you could see were DJs.
Absolutely, it was a special event.
The business. And on the first night, it started, and we hadn't rehearsed. They just sort of pushed us around, said, and then you will be here and there. So, and I realised that as I was miming the violin, there was somebody in the orchestra playing it, and it was magical, absolutely magical. And of course, nobody told me when to stop. And the orchestra, well, he stopped, and I continued for a few seconds. I got the biggest laugh ever, and the tenor then chased me round the corridors of the Stowe Theatre, and I was out, running up Kingsway. But those were very early days. Then,
Well, you were paid for these, I take it.
we got 10 shillings a week for that, I think.
And what about your schoolwork? You were still at school?
I was still at school, yeah. And by the time I was 14, I buggered off. I left school. I didn't do all the things I was supposed to do.
Yes, I was the same. I was actually kicked out because I spent all my time at the theatre.
Well, there you are. I had a scholarship.
And everybody said, you'll regret it. In the 50 years or more since then, nobody has asked me, not once,
Did you regret
it? Or did I have any GCs, or did I...
Yeah,
not
no,
once.
never did.
Nobody ever asked.
No. And I mean, you could just turn around and say, yes, I have.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got 10 of those.
No, but nobody ever even asked, so I didn't even have the opportunity to lie about it.
No, and you don't have tickety boxes either. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
I know.
So I buggered off by the time I was 14, and then was working on and off as an actor. But when it sort of kicked off for me was 19, I suppose about 58 or 59. Again, I'm not sure about dates. But I was working on a radio with the BBC rep in those days. I wasn't on the rep, but I used to go in and do shows. And one of the guys on it said, you should do some bit of theatre. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do some theatre. He said, well, why didn't you come to my theatre? And he ran somewhere called the Frinton Summer Theatre. So I went to Frinton. I did 10 plays in 10 weeks with Vanessa Redgrave. It was her first job. We did Look Back in Anger together, can you imagine? In the Women's Institute. And we did, you probably did this. We used to work, because it was a holiday resort, your first night was on Thursday. So you get 2 shows in 1 week if you were on holiday, and we did everything. We did separate tables. We did you can't call it that now. But
Do you remember who was directing then?
Yeah, there was one guy directed them all. Jeffrey Edwards, his name was.
That
Do you
rings a
remember
bell.
him? He
Did
was
the theatre have a name? Was it?
the theatre.
Yeah, I mean, was it Frinton Rep or what was it called?
It's called Frinton Summer Theatre. Yeah, it's still there. I think they still do it. But it was, the last weekly reps.
Very genteel, apparently.
It was, yeah, it is very genteel. You couldn't, there was no pub. The only place you'd get a drink, of course, which we all found out very soon, was the Working Man's Club. So we all became members very quickly.
Absolutely.
I was down there playing, I played Jimmy Porter, and I played...
How old, at what age?
I was 20. Then I'd do all the... I tried to get them at the National a few years ago when I was working there. I said, I've got a really good idea for the Cottesloe Theatre. Why don't we do weekly rep? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you get all your stars, and 1 week they play the lead, and 1 week they play the butler. That's what we used to do. It would have been great fun, and it would have filled the place. But,
It would, actually.
Yeah. You do all this.
And you do typical rep as
You have
well.
to do the old plays,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I mean,
Separate table, yeah.
Separate Table was the most popular play, was
Agatha
10 Little
Christie,
Knickers,
yeah.
which I can't call it that anymore. That was the one. Anything Agatha Christie, Spider's Web.
Hasn't changed.
No, well, there aren't any reps anymore. That's what's so bad.
Well, there is a very good, I think it's Bill Kenwright Company, I think, that tours Agatha Christie.
Really?
I think they tour more or less 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
And they do 1 show a year, and they tour it for 11 or 12 months. And I think it's called the Agatha Christie Company or something like that. And they're very good indeed.
It's terrible.
So, after Frinton.
Anyway, so that was my beginnings. Frinton, and then, so after Frinton, I got a job at Dundee.
You didn't go to drama school?
No. No, I went straight
Gawn,
on.
not necessarily.
I went straight on to...
So you were at Dundee, because I went to Dundee in 60.
just after me then.
And the old theatre, which was in the centre of town, had
Yep.
burnt down. Were you at the old theatre?
I was at the old theatre, yeah.
Because I went there in 60 when Derek Goodwin was running it with Jill Gascoigne.
Oh, that was after me, yes, much. Yeah, I spent a year there. It's amazing it burnt down, because they always had a couple of firemen sitting there all the time, obviously smoking.
Right.
And it was a sweet theatre. It was, the company was extraordinary. It was, Tony Page was the director. The company was Nicol Williamson,
That's right, yeah.
Edward Fox,
Yeah.
Glenda Jackson, Bill Marlowe, Peter Gill. It was an extraordinary company.
Well, I mean, even when I was there, John Thord just was leaving as
Yeah.
I arrived. Jimmy Bolam came up and did 3 or 4 plays,
Yeah.
or more, and directed one as well.
But it was a very successful theatre. Yeah.
And Perth as well, just on the road was
Yeah,
quite
that's
good.
right, yes.
There was a festival theatre, what was that called?
Oh, yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, which in fact John Calder.
Pit Lockery.
Was involved with.
Yeah. No, it was, yeah, it was great. I loved it up there.
Yeah, I did too.
Good city, it was a great city.
Yeah.
That was, did we not? We used to go to Perth, or you'd go halfway, so you'd get a drink on a Sunday. Of course, we were all wild. I mean, Nicol was off the wall,
Even there.
for the rest of his life. Yes, poor Nicol.
So how long were you at Dundee?
We were there a year, an absolute year, and that's when you could see. Oh, you could see what Nicol had. He had something that was so frightening and terrifying and brilliant on the stage. He was an extraordinary man. Was sadly a great actor who didn't fulfil it. I mean, he didn't. He
Because of the drink, I mean.
couldn't control it. Yeah, completely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
For some reason, he didn't want to live here. Thank you, darling. That's very smart.
Tax, I think.
And biggies as
And
well.
biscuits.
Wow.
I say. How was your class? Was it
At this
all right?
point, Gawn's wife, Zoe Wanamaker, brought us some tea and biscuits, so we decided to take a short break.